In this video, we're going to explore the psychology of money, one of the most influential books ever written about how people really behave with money. Not how money should work in theory, but how it actually works in real life, under pressure, fear, pride, and uncertainty. And at the end of this video, I'm going to reveal the deeper psychological reason why two people can read the same book, understand the same ideas, yet end up with completely different financial outcomes. A reason that isn't written explicitly in the book, but explains why understanding money is never enough to change how you live with it. An invisible rule controls your money. You already know how money works. Save more than you spend, avoid debt, think long term. And yet, your financial life probably doesn't reflect what you know. That's the paradox. You understand money, but you don't act like someone who does. Not because you're careless, not because you're undisciplined, but because an invisible psychological rule is quietly controlling your decisions. Today, you'll see 3 invisible rules described in the psychology of money that explain why intelligent, hard-working people keep making the wrong financial choices, even when they believe they're being rational. Once you see these rules, you won't be able to ignore them again. Money is psychological, not logical. The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel, is not a book about how to invest or how to get rich fast. It is a book about how people actually behave around money. Its central idea is simple but unsettling. Financial success has less to do with intelligence and more to do with psychology, emotions, and personal history. Two people can know the same facts, read the same data, and receive the same advice, yet make opposite decisions. Because money decisions are not made in spreadsheets, they are made inside human minds, shaped by fear, pride, memory, and uncertainty. That is where the real conflict lives. And that is why so many people understand what they should do, but still do the opposite. Your past decides today's choices. The first truth is this: you ignore how much your past controls your present decisions. Most people believe they make financial choices based on logic, but in reality, they are reacting to experiences they lived years ago. If you grew up during instability, safety feels more important than growth. If you lived through a financial mistake, avoiding pain feels smarter than pursuing opportunity. This creates relief at first. You feel protected, careful, responsible. But that relief slowly turns into frustration, because the same decisions that protect you also limit you. You might avoid investing not because it's irrational, but because your past taught you that losses hurt more than gains feel good. You might stay in financial patterns that feel familiar, even when you know they're not optimal. The rule you ignore is this: your brain is not designed to optimize wealth. It is designed to avoid pain. And pain remembered feels just as real as pain happening now. Pain avoidance beats logic. You don't make money decisions based on logic. You make them based on memory. Every financial choice you face is filtered through your past. Old losses, old mistakes, moments where things went wrong. Your brain doesn't ask, "What's the smartest move?" It asks, "How do I avoid feeling that pain again?" That's why two people can face the same opportunity and choose opposite paths. Not because one is smarter, but because one remembers a different kind of pain. This is why safe decisions often feel responsible, but quietly keep you trapped in the same financial position for years. Your past isn't protecting your future, it's controlling it. Luck shapes outcomes. The second truth is harder to accept. You underestimate how much randomness shapes outcomes. We love stories where success is clean and logical. Hard work leads to rewards. Discipline leads to stability. But reality is messier. Luck and risk play a massive role. even when no one likes to admit it. This creates hope at first. If others succeeded, maybe you can too. Then tension appears. Because if luck exists, failure feels personal. When things go wrong, people blame themselves completely. When things go right, they credit skill alone. This imbalance quietly distorts decisions. People take excessive risks after success, believing they figured it out. Others become overly cautious after failure, believing they are bad with money. The ignored rule here is this: outcomes do not perfectly reflect decisions. And when you forget that, you either punish yourself too harshly or trust yourself too blindly. Outcomes not equal decisions. Good decisions don't always lead to good outcomes. Most people believe results are proof of intelligence. If something worked, it must have been a smart decision. If it failed, it must have been a mistake. But real life doesn't work like that. Luck and risk distort outcomes constantly. You can make a solid decision and still lose. You can make a reckless decision and still win. Your brain hates this idea, because if outcomes aren't fair, then control feels weaker. That's why success often makes people overconfident, and failure makes people overly cautious. Both reactions are dangerous. When you judge decisions only by outcomes, you train yourself to repeat mistakes or avoid growth for the wrong reasons. Ego interferes with money. The third truth is the most uncomfortable. Your ego is involved in every financial decision you make. Money is never just money. It represents control, freedom, status, and identity. This is where cruelty enters the picture. Because losing money doesn't just feel like losing resources, it feels like losing competence. People hold on to bad decisions longer than they should because admitting a mistake threatens how they see themselves. They avoid changing strategies because change feels like an admission of failure. But here is the clarity. Protecting your ego often costs more than protecting your money. The invisible rule is this: when money decisions become identity decisions, logic loses. And the longer that happens, the more expensive it becomes. Identity blocks clarity. Most financial decisions are not about money. They are about identity. Money represents more than numbers. It represents competence, control, and self-worth. That's why admitting a bad decision feels painful. It doesn't feel like losing money. It feels like admitting you were wrong. So people hold losing investments too long. They avoid changing strategies. They defend past decisions even when evidence changes. Not because it's logical, but because changing course threatens who they believe they are. Protecting your ego feels safe in the moment, but it quietly compounds financial damage over time. The moment money becomes identity, logic stops guiding decisions, and cost starts multiplying. Money is behavior. Here is the revelation that reframes everything. Money is not a math problem. It is a behavior problem. The psychology of money shows that financial outcomes are shaped by personal history, perception of risk, and emotional tolerance, not by knowing more formulas. Once you see this, the question changes. Not, what is the smartest move, but what decision aligns with how I actually behave under pressure? That understanding alone changes how you see money forever. Change behavior, change results. And here's the part most people never realize. People don't struggle with money because they lack knowledge or discipline. They struggle because they apply financial ideas from a psychological identity shaped by fear, past mistakes, and emotional memory. When money decisions are tied to ego, every loss feels personal. When money decisions are tied to fear, every opportunity feels dangerous. And when money decisions are tied to identity, logic quietly disappears. That's why the same principles work for some people and fail for others. Not because the rules are wrong, but because the behavior applying them is conflicted. The moment you stop treating money as a reflection of who you are and start treating it as a system you manage regardless of emotion, that's when the psychology finally works in your favor. Not because you learned more, but because you stopped letting your past decide for you. Money magnifies who you already are. The invisible rules were never hidden. They were ignored because they don't feel technical enough to matter. But they do, every day. If you don't understand how your past, your ego, and randomness shape your decisions, no amount of information will save you. The urgency is not to learn more. The urgency is to see yourself clearly. Because money will always magnify who you already are. This content is for educational and informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial advice. Consult a professional before making financial decisions.